Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hydrogen for Life. I'm delighted to welcome you to this important event, which comes at a crucial moment, both for hydrogen and for climate change. It is now generally accepted that climate change and the challenge of CO2 emission reduction is one of the most pressing issues that we face as a planet. As we speak, the leaders of the world are in Glasgow for COP26 conference, trying to agree on a global strategy to tackle the problem. Industry has a crucial part to play in reducing CO2 emissions, and I'm glad to say that Bosch has taken a responsibility to the planet very seriously. Indeed, in 2020, we became the first large industrial business to eliminate Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions entirely, but only by offering products that enable our customers or users to do the same. We'll be able to take the rest of the world with us. This is why we're investing in hydrogen technology for decarbonizing our economy. Bosch is one of the 10 partners from a variety of different sectors and from across the hydrogen value chain who have collaborated to make this event here possible. We do not agree on everything. We all have different views as to exactly how the future will turn out, but we all share the same view that hydrogen will be a vital fuel for the decarbonized future. Today in Glasgow, world leaders are talking about the energy transition, so how we shift from an energy system based on fossil fuels towards one that emits zero carbon. We're here today to show part of the solution to making this transition, showcasing a range of products and technologies that will reduce our emissions while maintaining and improving the quality of our life. These are not speculative demonstrators or the stuff of science fiction. They are real working, proven technologies that can be rolled out as soon as the necessary regulation and infrastructure is in place. So the exhibition will open at 10 o'clock on the 5th floor, and there will be guided tours at 11, at 1, and 2:30. So please do not hesitate to reach out to the Bosch organizers. You will see them with Bosch gilets, yeah? And they will be delighted to help if you need guidance. To accompany this exhibition, we also have a full program of keynote speeches and roundtable discussions covering every aspect of hydrogen technology, from its production to its storage and its many uses. Expert speakers from a variety of backgrounds and many different perspectives will take us through the issues, the possibilities, the points of contention. It should be a fascinating series of conversation. I hope you enjoy the day and that you will be fully energized. We will now have 2 video messages. First from our Member of Parliament, Jacob Young, and afterwards from the Office of the German Ministry for Environment, from Dr. Susanna Thielecke. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Young, the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Hydrogen. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you in person today at today's Hydrogen for Life Summit. However, it's great to be able to speak virtually to attendees for this showcase event and celebrate the best of hydrogen. I'd like to thank the impressive companies who have taken part in today's event. And like you, there's no doubt that hydrogen is something I'm very passionate about. I fully believe that we have an exciting opportunity to create a hydrogen economy, to innovate and support our net zero targets, particularly when it comes to decarbonising industrial production, using hydrogen in transport, and decarbonise how we heat our homes and businesses. Now, I represent a seat in the northeast of England, Redcar, which is in the vanguard of the green industrial revolution. Teesside currently produces more than half of the UK's commercially viable hydrogen. So for me, the hydrogen economy represents a fantastic opportunity to generate thousands of highly skilled jobs and attract much needed inward investment. I'm proud to be the chair of the Hydrogen All-Party Parliamentary Group, which brings together MPs and Lords from all political parties to advocate and make the case for hydrogen. As you'll know, the government published the UK's first hydrogen strategy in the summer. This strategy was a great first step and gave industry the backing it needed to continue its work in establishing a hydrogen economy. But we must continue to build on this. Hydrogen can play a significant role in shaping our future economy and our ability to meet our net zero targets. This includes replacing our carbon emissions, improving air quality, and developing the UK's green economy through the creation of skilled green jobs. Recent weeks and the fluctuating price of natural gas have also underlined the importance of strengthening our energy security. Hydrogen can provide a key solution to these challenges. The UK is a global leader in hydrogen technology and innovation, but with many countries now pressing ahead with their own national hydrogen strategies, the UK must act quickly or risk falling behind. I hope attendees and businesses can work together today to continue to promote the benefits of a hydrogen economy to policymakers across the political spectrum. As always, I'm keen to hear directly from industry about your views on the UK's hydrogen policy framework, so please feel free to get in touch with my office and the APPG Secretariat if you have any specific issues that you think our group should consider. Have a great rest of the day today, and sorry again that I can't be with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Minister Thielecke is unfortunately indisposed at the time of recording of this message, but she asked me to convey her best regards to you and to address a few remarks to you in her name. Man-made climate change is one of the greatest challenges that has ever faced humanity. It will take all our political will and technological ingenuity to transform our economies and build a cleaner, better future. But great challenges have always also driven innovation, and so we are also living in exciting times. Both the UK and Baden-Württemberg have the potential to be front-runners of the necessary transformations. Hydrogen for Life is proof of this, an exhibition showcasing the best of Anglo-German hydrogen innovation and technologies. We don't need to argue that hydrogen and fuel cell technologies will play a key role in the further restructuring of our energy systems and the conversion to innovative and low-emission economies. The development of hydrogen technology is advancing by leaps and bounds, but we need to drive it forward strategically in our countries to be part of this technological revolution. Not only European countries, such as the UK and Baden-Württemberg, have recognised the opportunities of a hydrogen future. Asian countries in particular, like Japan, South Korea and China, are entering a hydrogen economy on a massive scale. In this hotly contested market, economies must really step up their game if they intend to make hydrogen technologies available for the global transition to clean energy. But if we succeed, we can profit enormously, both in terms of climate protection, but also the economy. According to a study published in 2020, the sales potential for Baden-Württemberg in 2030 is around 9 billion euros. This enormous economic potential must be tapped. In 2030, the development of the hydrogen and fuel cell sector in Baden-Württemberg could generate a gross value added of 2.3 billion euros, which could create 16,500 jobs. So what is the strategy we are pursuing in Baden-Württemberg? The state government of Baden-Württemberg has developed a hydrogen roadmap for the coming years. It addresses the focal points for action, defines concrete goals, and underlines them with a total of 29 measures. The roadmap takes into account all relevant dimensions of a hydrogen economy, from production to technology development and the development of an infrastructure to the various fields of application. The goal of the hydrogen roadmap is to contribute to a comprehensive reduction in the use of fossil fuels in the various sectors such as industry, mobility, and the energy production, so in effect to a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. At the same time, we want to position Baden-Württemberg as a leading location for the hydrogen and fuel cell industry, both nationally and internationally, as part of a wider European context. Getting the hydrogen industry up and running is not something one region or country can do by itself. It is a European and even a global task and challenge. So let us cooperate in accelerating the global transition to clean energy. I'm sure the contacts made and inspiration gained at today's exhibition will add to the momentum.
Good morning. Is someone going to get that? Oh, yeah. Arun Srinivasan is my name, responsible for mobility solutions here at Bosch in the UK. I'm just going to share a few views about how Bosch sees hydrogen from a mobility perspective and the challenges we face as an industry and the opportunities we have. I think the pandemic has shown how challenging it is. That's the clicking talk. Or the talk. The pandemic has shown how difficult it is for humans to adapt to new situations. I think behavioral transformation is huge, and it isn't easy. And we are in the midst of another transformation here on mobility, which is simply assumed by everyone as given. And that's not going to be easy either. So let me just tell you where we are, and perhaps it'll be food for good discussions thereafter. Happy to answer any questions. There is absolutely no doubt that the internal combustion engine has fulfilled all of the requirements of mobility for over 100 years. I think this is almost a given. And the multitude of use cases that it fits into and delivers solutions for in any populated or remote location is taken for granted. As we transition, and the journey has already begun towards carbon neutral mobility, and as we transition out of a solely fossil fuel world into a carbon neutral world, hybrids will play a very important part. And it is very important that we support the hybrids as well, until and unless we have sustainable solutions and sustainable sources of carbon neutral fuel. As we proceed further towards carbon neutrality and source of energy being from renewable sources, we see fuel cell. Thank you. We see fuel cell electric vehicles, but also the hydrogen engine. And I'll tell you in a few slides why that is the case. We see them as gaining prominence, not as competing factors to battery electric vehicles. I mean, no one argues the fact that for passenger cars, the battery electric vehicle has established itself. Of course, we have the challenges with charging infrastructure. We've got the costs of the batteries and all of these that we still need to get through. We will get there, colleagues. But I think this is about setting up the infrastructure to get hydrogen going, because I think these are complementary technologies we should be looking at in greater seriousness. Let me just take the picture of the commercial vehicle world, and anyone who's been in this field for over a period of time understands the challenges of the ecosystem we work in. Of course, for buses and trucks that operate within distribution centers and urban areas, batteries offer a fantastic source of carbon-free mobility, hub-to-hub transportation, or even those that operate out of a single hub, run 24 hours, can be charged in between. There is, of course, the question, and some of my colleagues will address this later, where does the electricity come from, and what are the solutions out there? And if you look at buses that operate within cities but also go long distance, the fuel cell is already there in its early phases. The heavy-duty transportation is an area where the hydrogen engine has its own, to be honest. You cannot imagine some of these long-distance trucks working on battery power when the payload itself is then challenged. So we see hydrogen engine as a significant part of that business, also for off-highway. I think we have a source very close to home already considering hydrogen as a fuel for off-highway applications. I think, like I said before, these are complementary technologies. Here's another view of it. I said complementary, and we see here the range we estimate today. This is a Bosch view, obviously. This will evolve with all technologies evolving over time. And we estimate that you will have most of the long-distance haulage to be done through hydrogen engines. If you consider the fact that global trade, which is applied on trucks, contributes to 30% of all of transport's CO2 emissions, hydrogen is required to do some of that heavy lifting. Otherwise, we will be in difficulty. We can't all electrify these solutions. How these get deployed in the marketplace depends entirely on a lot of local regulations, country to country, region to region. There will be strategic decisions made by vehicle manufacturers and logistics companies, and having this sort of coalition between people who are interested in the transformation, as we do currently in the Auto Council in the UK. Some of those coalitions will evolve, will bring in the right sort of solutions for the market. There isn't a one-size-fits-all over here. New business models. Electrification does offer new business models in the marketplace, and those solutions will be the way that some of the technologies enter the market, perhaps quicker than we did originally when it was just a question of buying and selling trucks, for that matter. Hydrogen fuel cell, yes, we are committed to this technology. As you will see later here, there's an exhibit in the far corner. And Bosch offers everything within the hydrogen fuel cells, from the electric drive, the fuel cell itself, and of course, the whole host of engineering facilities that go around the hydrogen fuel cell. We aim to have this technology on road in 2022-23, funded partly by projects within the European Union. There'll be a fleet of trucks operating in this area very soon, and we are preparing as well for a global footprint with manufacturing of the hydrogen fuel cell in Germany and China, but engineering centers all over the world. Just to dwell a little deeper into the system itself, it is complex, but it's not complicated. We are in a position to offer all of the balance of plant components. Colleagues will be able to demonstrate and explain to you some of the background to that technology. We've got stacks on their own, and we've got combination of stacks, so you could either have a fuel cell kit, if you wish, with a controller and the stack, or the stack on its own, or multiple stacks into a hydrogen, into a modular unit that addresses your power range. So I think there's quite a lot of discussion that's happening with various customers around the world. There are over 100 projects on the hydrogen engine, and these are projects in R&D phase. These are engines that are already running in machines and trucks, and we see an increasing amount of interest from all over the world. That's an overview of the hydrogen engine as we see it. This is combustion hydrogen within an engine. The good thing is it's an opportunity for the whole industry, because the components that are needed here are already available. It's almost a ready-to-deploy technology. Yes, there is work to be done on the injector to address the lubricity missing from the fuel and or lifetime durability aspects, but that technology exists today. The after-treatment, given that hydrogen combustion produces factors 5 or 6 less than a diesel engine, an existing after-treatment system from the vehicles we have today will address any NOx out emissions from the system itself. So we don't see this as a huge challenge, but of course the challenge is on the availability of hydrogen. Let me just conclude by saying that, once again, I've said this before, as these being complementary technologies, we see clearly we need to have a very technology neutral approach to make sure the right use case is addressed with the right solution. And I certainly believe that, as you heard in the 2 videos earlier and Vonjy's statement in the opening as well, it's us coming together that brings these solutions to the marketplace. I think we need to work in a collaborative fashion. I don't want to be with hydrogen where we are today with battery electric vehicles, when we are struggling with infrastructure, availability, and then putting people off from buying electric cars simply because they do not know where to charge. I think this time around, there needs to be a bigger investment in the hydrogen infrastructure to make it available for whatever use case comes along. Otherwise, we will not be on the path, especially with heavy goods transport and commercial vehicles. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much also for standing. I hope that the ladies don't have high heels on, at least I'm not. But we have another speaker here at the Smith Center, a fabulous speaker, Matt Williamson from BP. Just a couple of housekeeping before we start the last speech here, that afterwards actually the exhibition area on the 5th floor would be open for you. And then we will start then our live stream and as well as the roundtables discussions on the 4th floor. Matt, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you all. It's a treat to be here in person, firstly, and see real people. But it's also a treat to be able to talk about hydrogen with other people who are also passionate about hydrogen. My team at BP, hydrogen is our passion. We're looking to develop projects across the world, which is our contribution to helping the world decarbonise. And being here in the Science Museum is also very special. So as a child growing up in rural Somerset, there wasn't a lot of science and engineering. Is anybody here from Somerset? Yes. This is the first time I've ever asked that question, and I've got a positive response. So it may seem strange now, but it was a really big day out to get on a train, go to London, and to come to the Science Museum. And the highlight for me as that child was to see Stephenson's rocket. Now, it's no longer in a Science Museum, but it is still an absolutely fundamental part of our industrial heritage. And in the same way that Stephenson's locomotives transformed the transport world, our hope is that low-carbon hydrogen can transform our energy world. Now, while my hands-on days of science and engineering are behind me, I regard myself as being a lapsed engineer. I still get an enormous thrill from working both with our BP engineering colleagues and our partners. And it's great to see so many innovators here today, and I can't wait to get to the exhibition, but we will have to finish my speech first. And I do say I'm privileged because it's not often you get to work on projects where you can combine kind of personal goals to help with decarbonisation with professional as well. So we're working on projects which will leave a community legacy, but also hopefully a decarbonisation legacy. So I'm going to touch on a handful of areas today. I'm just going to briefly touch on BP and how BP is becoming a net zero. So I know that a lot of people see BP as being an ugly old oil and gas company, but we are moving actually very fast to become a net zero company. I'm going to talk about why hydrogen matters. There's a lot of hype in the media, but what is the truth? What do we see as being the truth behind hydrogen? I'm going to talk about what we're learning, and that's manufacture of hydrogen. It's how we're using it for new applications. It's how we work with customers. I do want to talk about projects, and I'm going to talk about green hydrogen and blue hydrogen. I'm an equal opportunities producer of low carbon hydrogen. And I'll finish by talking about partners, because I certainly don't claim that we know all the answers, and it is only working as part of a bigger hydrogen community that will get where we need to get to as soon as we need to get to. So like many regions, countries, companies, BP is going through a significant clean energy transformation. We've committed to be a net zero company and help the world get to net zero as well. And whilst my teenage children will still roll their eyes and say, "Dad, you work for an oil company," I'm confident that my grandchildren will see a very different business. So for many years, we've been moving from oil to gas. That's the start of the transition. But the big change is in the investments we're making in renewable power, hydrogen, carbon capture. So we've already got a big wind business and solar business, but by 2050, it's going to be 50 gigawatts. So that's equivalent to 60% of the UK's current power market. So that's a massive amount of renewable power, a very big change for BP. In carbon capture and storage, we're working on projects from the US through to Asia. And here in the UK, a couple of weeks ago, the project that we're working on in the North Sea has been announced as one of the first and largest industrial decarbonisation projects in the UK and the world. And we've set out a very bold ambition in hydrogen that we would like to supply 10% of low carbon hydrogen in core geographies, of which the UK is certainly one. But we can't do this alone. This is definitely something to be done in partnership with low carbon partners and customers. So this is where I talk about the hype or the lack of hype. So what do we see about the future of low carbon hydrogen? So put simply, it's real, it's going to be big, and it's going to be global. So to achieve net zero, we're going to need low carbon hydrogen. It's not about greenwashing or publicity. We have to make low carbon hydrogen for the lowest cost possible as soon as possible. We're still at the early stage of industrial and commercial use of hydrogen as energy, but the potential is massive. So how big? Now, I think we all struggle with the units for hydrogen. So the way I keep it in my head is that by 2050, if we're to get to net zero, hydrogen will be the same order of magnitude as gas is today. So that, for me, is a business worth us all being part of. We also see a mix of green and blue. Local conditions will determine what the lowest cost form of low carbon hydrogen is. Here in the UK, we like the UK government's twin track approach on green and blue hydrogen. We think there's a big role for both, and we think that they can and should be low carbon, and a low carbon standard will help that. And it's going to be global. You can see some flags on the screen there. These are countries where BP has real material projects. So we're very much going from pilot hydrogen to commercial scale, industrial scale carbon. And I think if we were to come back in a couple of months' time, I might be able to add a couple more countries to that list. So it's going to be global. So I'm going to talk about how BP is making hydrogen. And it's not new. So we've been making and using hydrogen for decades. In fact, one of my first jobs in BP, 25 years ago, was a refinery engineer. And I was working on a process unit which used the hydrogen produced in our refinery to make cleaner transport fuels. And I mean, there's people, I think, at least as old as me in this room. So as a child, kind of the big environmental issue was acid rain. Contribution was the sulfur in transportation fuels. And hydrogen was the magic molecule that helped to desulfurize those transport fuels. And so there was no longer a contribution to acid rain. Hopefully, hydrogen can be just as effective in helping us with global warming. So we're currently a very big producer of hydrogen, probably at 1% of global production. We know how to handle it. We know how to make it. But as we currently make it, CO2 is emitted. It's grey hydrogen. Turning this hydrogen into low carbon hydrogen is part of our challenge. Now, I said earlier, we're an equal opportunity producer of hydrogen, green, electrolyzing water with renewable power, or blue, where we reform natural gas and capture the CO2. So how do we choose? And with the latest technology, which will only improve, the value chain carbon emissions from both green and blue hydrogen are very similar. Therefore, the question becomes, how can I decarbonize for the lowest cost? And the answer varies by location. But what we're clear on is there is a big role for both green and blue hydrogen. As a sports fan, you would love to have Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo on the same team. And just in the same way, it's good to have blue and green hydrogen. But there's no point in having a great product if you've got no one to buy it. So I want to talk about the importance of new hydrogen customers and how we're working with them. So in the near term, industrial users are going to be key users of hydrogen across a number of applications. And my friends ask me, what gives me confidence that BP can be successful in a new business like clean hydrogen? That they accept that BP can do big projects with experience gained from engineering, building and operating some of the world's biggest energy projects. But what about customers? And for me, that's the best bit, because we can work with our existing customers across gas, trucks, cars, ships, aeroplanes, to move to low carbon alternatives. So anybody who's got a high temperature heating application using gas, they could move to hydrogen. And that's what we're doing in Teesside. We're moving a lot of those gas customers to hydrogen customers. It's a great way to make big inroads into emissions. It's also great for a range of transportation options. So trucks and trains, you can fill your truck up with hydrogen at the start of the day, go all day. You've got range, uptime, and carbon-free travel. Also aeroplanes. So some aeroplanes will use hydrogen directly. Others will use sustainable aviation fuel, for which low-carbon hydrogen will be a key input. And then in shipping, which I think is the worst of the worst in terms of the heavy, sticky marine fuel oil at the moment, those ships can move to ammonia. The ammonia will be produced with low-carbon hydrogen. So across all our big transportation areas, we're hoping to move our customers to hydrogen or hydrogen derivatives. And although sometimes these industries are local, so for example, industries in Teesside, their products are nationwide. So when my dad paints his shed in Somerset, he'll be using paint that's been decarbonised in Teesside. The whole country benefits. And when the farmer in the field next door fertilises his field, that fertiliser too will have been decarbonised in Teesside. So even if the decarbonisation is happening in somewhere that is remote to you, you can still feel the benefit. So there's been a lot of talk about hydrogen, and it's time to get real. So I want to talk about a couple of real projects. The first one is in Germany. And the day we announced this project, the share price went up by a couple of percent. We tried to claim that as a hydrogen team. There may have been some bigger market factors at play. But nonetheless, it was significant for us because, for three reasons. It was a large-scale project. So 50 megawatts is definitely not in the pilot range. That is big. In fact, the second reason it's important is because of the decarbonisation benefit. That's 45,000 cars off German roads effectively by doing this project. And the third thing about it is it's connected to world-class renewable power. So we're partnered with Ørsted, and we've got great renewable power legacy in the North Sea. The initial project is 50 megawatts, but we can go much bigger. In fact, the aim will get to 500 megawatts. The reason this project works today, and again, it's 2024 startup, which is kind of like it's close enough that we can touch it. It's not so far in the future, is because there are incentives to get renewable energy into transportation fuels. So we can do this straight away. So this example of something that is very tangible, happening pretty soon, and where there's low carbon incentives in place. The next project I'm going to talk about is in the UK, which is at the other end of the scale. So Lingen was 50 megawatts. In Teesside, we're looking at 1,000 megawatts, or a gigawatt, which is truly a world-scale decarbonisation project. This would be able to produce 20% of the UK's 2030 clean hydrogen target. And the aim is to start it up at the same time as the carbon capture project off the east coast of Teesside. So as well as removing CO2 equivalent to 1 million households, it will bring longer-term benefits to the region. So Jacob Young spoke earlier. This is very much in his constituency, and it's going to not only safeguard existing industries for decades, it will also encourage new industries to come to the area who want to use low-carbon hydrogen. And it actually goes beyond the direct jobs. So 2,000 jobs in construction, 500 jobs supported in operations, but this is a chance to build UK supply chain. So if we can build the UK hydrogen supply chain on this project, we can then take that with us as we do global projects around the world. I mentioned Stephenson earlier. So one of his early locomotives was in Teesside and was really at the kickoff of the rail transformation. 100 years ago, Teesside was at the heart of the steel business and exported steel all around the world. Hopefully, 100 years on from that, it can be the center of the low-carbon hydrogen revolution. But none of this happens without partners. And as a scientist, surrounded by engineers, I'm going to start by talking about technology partnerships. So the target is low-carbon hydrogen, low cost, as soon as possible. That means bringing together the best skills. So we'll do what we're good at, which is making hydrogen, working with energy customers, creating large and sustainable energy value chains. But we want to partner with specialists, and that one of those is technology. So there's a lot of examples. There's a picture here of a hydrogen truck. So we announced a partnership with Daimler a couple of weeks ago to accelerate the build-out of heavy-duty trucking infrastructure in the UK, just to start. Last week, we had the joy of going to Gateshead to the Hydrogen Home, where Northern Gas Networks are demonstrating that you can safely use hydrogen in a domestic setting. And then lastly, which is my favorite, I got to go around the Johnson Matthey pilot plant in Teesside, where they are trialing a technology that BP is a technology partner with them on that will create sustainable aviation fuel. And that also is going to be a huge part of the world's future, we think. We're also working with customers. So unfortunately, hydrogen is not like power. You can't just pipe it into somebody's home and switch on and your TV works. People who are going to use hydrogen are going to have to adapt their existing businesses or build new businesses. So I think hydrogen boilers, there'll be folk in the room who'll know exactly how to fit a hydrogen boiler. Yes, that can be done. But when you're moving a kind of large industrial user from natural gas to hydrogen, there's things you need to do. So working with customers across a range of applications is key to this. And then lastly, the government. I can see at least one government official that I recognize today. Absolutely vital to put in place the right business models, incentives to make decarbonisation happen. So here in the UK, we've seen a massive change in renewable power. So 6.5% in 2010, up to over 40% last year. And that really was driven by the UK government putting in place incentives to develop the renewable power business. We think we can do the same on a hydrogen basis. And we're working with governments across the world to do this. And I do think it's a bit of a competitive race. We've got a project in the Netherlands, project in the UK, and I'm waiting to see which government goes first in terms of the business model support. So to finish, hydrogen is going to be big. Low carbon hydrogen is going to be big. It's happening now. We're not in the pilot stage, we're in the real stage. BP's in action, and that covers production, customers across the globe, and we all have a part to play. This is not for any one person or one company to do alone. We've all got a part to play with the benefits felt globally. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to speaking to you later.